It's another app retargeting presentation. Hopefully, the takeaways from this will be different from our previous presentation. RevX is a mobile app retargeting platform, and we have been working with our agency partner, the Mobile Growth Agency, for the last couple of months. So today, what we're going to do is we'll talk a little bit about how the whole app retargeting platform evolution has happened in the last couple of years. And our focus is going to be more on the advanced analytics, how you can get the max out of app retargeting, given that a lot of the basics in the app retargeting platform evolution are in place. So if you think about the app retargeting 1.0, which kind of started in 2012, it was a very simple, basic solutions. You needed to do SDK implementation to get the data. Ads were mostly static, and attributions were not really figured out at that point. The app retargeting 2.0 is when most of the MMPs like AppsFlyer, AppsLR, Tune, they figured out the attribution for retargeting campaign versus install campaign. Deep linking became quite commonplace. Most of the platforms started supporting deep linking, and dynamic ads have become fairly common now. If you are an e-commerce platform, or if you are a travel platform, and if you're not using dynamic ads for retargeting, then you're losing a lot of value out of app retargeting. So what is next? Like, once we have all these basic tech infrastructure figured out, how you can get the max out of a retargeting campaign, that's what we call app retargeting 3.0. So today's our focus is going to be, once you have dynamic ads running, once you have deep linking figured out, you have your data infrastructure in place, how you can get the max out of a retargeting campaign by doing advanced analytics. So for that, I have with me Diana Kim. Diana is the Director of Growth at TMGA. And Diana, why don't you talk about, what's your problem that you started with when we started working with RevX?
Absolutely. So just kind of taking a step back, TMGA, or the Mobile Growth Agency, is an agency focused on acquiring, activating, and engaging users with our clients' apps. So this specific use case, one of my clients is BackFlip Studios. BackFlip Studios is a gaming studio based out of Boulder, Colorado. I feel like one of the few in Boulder. But we essentially identified one of the key problems, which was driving revenue from lapsed purchasers, which I feel like is very relatable in the space as everyone's trying to drive revenue. So how we worked with RevX to start, we really wanted to focus on a campaign that was aside from anything that was owned and operated by their team, so whether it be push notifications or emails. So we're thinking about supplemental traffic with RevX. Specifically, when it came to the strategy in itself, we looked at dynamic segments. So initially, we started off with kind of a user list that was generated by their team. However, we did implement postbacks, really tying back to key events within their funnel to then start a more dynamic as well as more sophisticated retargeting strategy. Secondarily, we also refresh creatives on a regular basis, especially with the campaigns that we have run. They're really run against key moments within the client's overall calendar for the year in terms of events, which really made it a little bit more engaging as well as relevant and consistent with what was in the app. In terms of advanced analytics, as Mukesh has mentioned, instead of just looking at just ROI or ROAS based off of the particular campaign by OS, we're really getting deeper into how the campaigns are doing, how the segments are doing, even with placement, just because the placements can then fuel either creative strategies or other strategies involved with the segments and see if it's correlative or relatable. And secondarily, that kind of flows into full transparency, understanding what key metrics are associated with a creative or with a particular publisher, and actually having the insight to what publisher it is valuable in terms of overall creative strategies moving forward.
Well, thank you. So we want to share some results from the campaign we have run through TMGA for BackFlip Studio. This is a campaign in the week 5. We ran the campaign for 2 weeks to just learn about how the segments are performing, what kind of audience data we are getting, what is the creative strategy, etc. So we followed a lot of strategies which Diana talked about in the first 2 weeks to really get the campaign started. And once we started dynamic segmentation, once we started refreshing the creatives and did a deep analytics of performance of different segments, week over week, we saw the improvement in the performance. We started with the goal of 1x ROI. They wanted to get the money which they spent on retargeting back. So we started with the 0.65x, and within 5 weeks of running the campaign, looking at the click attribution, which is 30 days click attribution window, we saw 1.2x of ROI on this retargeting campaign. Now, when you do a retargeting campaign, a lot of marketing still is focused on the click attribution, but there is a significant benefit you can get just by exposing a lapsed user with your retargeting creatives. So we measured what are the performance of the campaign when you look at the view-through attribution. So in the view-through attribution, we see the results even more astounding. We started with a 10x ROS on view-through-based attribution, and over a 5 weeks of period, the ROI went to 22x. So whether you look at view-through attribution for your marketing or not, it's always good to look at the impact of your campaign performance, both on click-through based as well as for the view-through based attribution. Now looking into we talked about a bit more advanced analytics, right? So one of the questions that a lot of mobile marketers ask is, users have installed my app, they know my brand, they've given some space on the app. So what is the real value of retargeting? Why should you retarget, do paid retargeting? So what are the different ways you have been able to sort of convince yourself that there is a value in retargeting the user through paid retargeting channels?
Yeah. And I think it was at the very first session this morning when they talked about incremental, what does it mean to advertisers today? How I think about it is if all else, including product as well as any sort of communication strategies are relatively static, or static as they can be, what can a paid retargeting program do? Does it increase user behavior, or does it decrease it, or does it not do anything at all? So thinking about that and just key metrics to look at, we look at conversion rate. So specifically for BackFlip, we looked at the in-app purchase rate. For conversion velocity, we're thinking about, okay, if someone is exposed to an ad, are they more likely to make that in-app purchase faster? Alongside with the average order value, are they more likely to purchase like one of the higher tiered, is it actually a dragon veil game? So would they like a higher dragon veil or a dragon versus a lower one? And then flip side, looking at lifetime value, just seeing if lifetime value either increases or decreases over time.
Yeah. So A/B testing, incremental lift testing is something which is critical, and you might not find a retargeting partner which is capable of doing these kind of testing. So with Dragon Well campaign, we did a bit more analysis, and I wanted to show that there's real value in retargeting through paid channel. And here are some of the results that we came across. So the user segment that we retargeted were 14 days lapsed users. So these were the users who were, purchaser of the Dragon Well app, and they were inactive for last 14 days. So we put this user into 3 different cohorts. The one cohort was the sort of a control group where we did not run any retargeting campaign on those users. The second cohort, which is cohort B, was the users who got exposed to retargeting ad. They might not have clicked the retargeting ad, but they saw the retargeting ad. And the last cohort were the users who was exposed to retargeting ad and interacted with the ad. So you can see the massive difference in performance when the user is not retargeted. These are the lapsed users. Only 0.5% of the users came and made some in-app purchase. But when we exposed to the retargeting ad, the in-app purchase rate went up to 7%. So these are the users who just saw the ad, didn't click. And the user who clicked the ad, the in-app purchase rate further went up to 7.8%. So, we can always measure ROAS, but it's always important to look at the retargeting campaign from different perspective, look at the different metrics and see, are we getting any incremental value out of the money we are spending on paid retargeting campaign? So this is clearly a show that there's a real lift in the in-app purchase rate when the users were exposed to retargeting ads.
And just one thing to add is that the control, I think, is key in this case to look at incremental lift. You can only go so far when you take a look at pre, during, and post-campaign metrics, because if you're targeting all dormant users, for example. especially as you get more sophisticated in your campaign strategies, you're getting more segments in, maybe some have overlap, it gets really muddy. So by having a control group to really figure out, okay, if all else is static, are these campaigns effective, you'll have a clear kind of line of sight as to what's going on with your campaign as a whole.
Another important aspect of retargeting, there's a lot of focus given on segmenting the users. We create different cohorts. We look at, for m-commerce, look at, people who added item to shopping cart vendors, product viewers, but not much focus is given on understanding the performance of your campaign by different segment. So what has been your experience in terms of, how to really deep dive into the campaign performance beyond just the high-level ROAS, and how that has impacted the overall strategy around how to get max out of retargeting campaign?
And so for the purpose of the BackFlip's campaign, we did a very simple and basic segmentation of first-time purchasers as well as repeat purchasers, given that we had the post-back purchases going through. And when we are looking at just the different ROI metrics for each segment, what we found is that with first-time purchasers, they have a slightly lower ROI than repeat purchasers, which is as to be expected, given that the first-time purchaser is still getting used to the app, still getting used to the experiences, and also the purchase behavior in itself. So with that said, the ROI based off of each segment then helps us fuel the bidding methodologies or bidding strategies that we bid when we're serving our ads. So do we spend more or less for a first-time purchaser in that segment? Maybe. So it really just helps us collaborate with RevX in terms of truly identifying what we should be paying for and how we should be placing our bets.
Yeah. So here are some of the results from this analysis. We looked at the overall ROI, not just as a campaign level. We segmented the users further, and we looked at what kind of ROI we are getting from the people who are making first-time purchase, and what ROI we are getting from the users who are making repeat purchase. And we saw 46% ROI from first-time purchasers, 78% from repeat purchasers. And as a retargeting vendors, we want to provide this transparency to our customers so that they can plan their media budgets based on what their marketing objectives are. We have a lot of clients who wants to focus on the user who have installed the app but have not made first-time purchase. Now, if you look at, if you are working with vendors and giving just one common ROI goal, then and then vendors are likely to go after the users who are easy to convert. For example, in the e-commerce case, they might just focus on the low funnel users because low funnel users have the best conversion rate, the highest CTR. So it's from the business perspective for retargeting vendors, always profitable to go after the users who are easy to convert. So you should always ask for ROI by different segmentation, and then plan your media strategy, which can help you achieve your marketing objective based on whether you're looking for new purchasers or repeat purchasers, how much to spend on each of the segments.
Yeah, I think one thing to also keep in mind in terms of the repeat purchasers bucket is, especially from the client side, is it worth targeting these users continuously? And I think that's something that you test with your partner. And also keep in mind that if you have a continuous segment that is running, I would just be wary of just frequency capping as well as just audience saturation or audience fatigue. Because at a certain point, are your ads as effective as day one when we launch? Yeah. So continuously iterating off of whatever segment or creative, as well as where you're placing your bets, will be key in terms of driving our continuous ROI.
So next, talk about attribution. Attribution is something which is, it's a subject which gets a lot of attention. There is no one-size-fits-all method for attribution. Every business has different goal. And you really need to have the attribution which really aligns with your marketing objective. The attribution is a bit more challenging in the mobile app world because you're attributing to your UA source, you're attributing to your retargeting source. And when you're doing a lifetime value analysis, it's important to make sure that you're allocating the value in the right way to the partner who drove the install versus the partner who are helping you improve the conversion rate or retargeting the install user base, right? So what's been your experience in terms of attribution? How should marketing go about attribution when think about retargeting?
So many thoughts. But I would say from a retargeting perspective, instead of drawing the line in the sand or having the attribution partners kind of give you this 7-day post-click, 1-day view-through, figure out what's working for your actual business. So especially when it comes down to whatever revenue generating event, look at the average time or average window it takes for a customer to actually do that event, which should then help correlate to what your actual attribution windows should be with your partners. So for example, like if an in-app purchase on average takes about 4 days for my client, it doesn't make any sense to do a 7-day or even a 14-day or anything longer from a post-click perspective, because as you are implementing push notification strategies or any sort of owned and operated strategies, the measurement gets so muddy across all of your channels, so you don't know what's actually having that impact. Or flip side, you're actually over-attributing to your vendor, no offense, but you could be overpaying at a certain point. And then also just in terms of the click versus view through, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's really contingent on the user journey. So that impression is part of that user journey, which does have an impact. Maybe they don't necessarily click on that particular ad. However, they are influenced by that ad because they're like, oh, it's a reminder. Maybe I should go play that later. So rather than not having it at all, which they may just not play. Mm-hmm. So I think that view through, especially when it comes to retargeting, is a key factor to incorporate along with post-click.
Yeah, I think one thing which is to add to here, when you look at the mobile app retargeting attribution, it's also important to look at what should the reattribution window. So reattribution window is something where that window defines for how long any in-app purchase or in-app conversion should attribute it to install source versus at what point the attribution start going to re-engagement source. So if your goal is to really drive the conversion velocity, you want to increase the speed at which user convert, then you want to keep your reattribution window very small. But at the same time, you want to balance out attributing to your install source as opposed to with your retargeting source. So typically, we have seen customer keep 7 days reattribution window. That means like from the install date, for 7 days, all the attribution goes to the install source, and after 7 days, your retargeting source start getting the attribution for all the in-app purchases. So important to look at how to allocate the attribution between install source and retargeting source, which is important in the mobile app space. You don't have this problem when you are looking at attribution for the desktop campaigns, but in the mobile app, given that you are making effort to drive the user to install the app, and then you are retargeting users to drive the conversion. So having the right attribution between install source and retargeting partner is also critical. So having said that, the whole app retargeting ecosystem is evolved quite a bit in the last 4 years. There are app retargeting vendors who are only doing app retargeting strategies. There are technologies like the install networks now start offering app retargeting. Now the display or desktop retargeters are also offering app retargeting. So when you go about as an agency, you are working with multiple vendors, multiple customers. So how do you go about selecting the right app retargeting partners? Yeah. What are the key attributes for you when you make a decision to work with a certain partner?
Absolutely. So I think that like dynamic ad segmentation or dynamic ad serving as well as like segmentation should just be a given. Any sort of retargeting vendor that you work with should already have that technology infrastructure already built. When I think about differentiating, because there's so many vendors in the space and it seems like they're doing relatively similar things at this point, I really kind of focus on one, transparency. I think that in mobile, transparency is somewhat lacking in terms of if you're looking at exchanges and publishers and really identifying what sources you're actually running on. So whether it be publishers or flip side, the campaign transparency, and really looking at out of the fees, for example, that we're paying off of how much are our fees. A lot of the vendors out there bake it into your overall CPC costs or the cost per CPA costs, but that's an added cost to you and you're paying more. You could theoretically be paying more than what you should. Flexibility, it's really nice to kind of work with a vendor who is being willing to be flexible in terms of attribution windows as well as pricing, because in the long run, you're trying to build your ROI story to your executive suite. So anything that helps you in terms of provide clear measurement as well as save you additional costs, hey, I don't think your boss would be mad if you save costs for the company. Another thing is mobile focus. So I feel like there is definitely a transition with a lot of retargeting vendors out there who have started in web, but also is now doing mobile. Really figure out who is mobile focused. So who actually is integrated with all the exchanges as well as the direct publishers, as well as look at their overall reach and figure out if they actually have the reach that is sustainable, as well as touching as many devices as possible. And last but not least is reporting. I feel like reporting can be cumbersome, but it's nice to see like a lot of the vendors out there are having their own dashboards. So just trying to figure out how to get more reporting and as well as more transparent reporting going down to the campaign or creative level will be key. But I know we have 15 seconds, but I'm always curious because I ask this to all my partners. From like a technological perspective, how are you changing the product itself to the client?
Yes, I think there are a couple of angles where we are innovating on the tech front. If you think about the retargeting, there are sort of three main aspects. One is the media aspect, second is the creative, and third is the audience segmentation or analytics behind that. So we believe that the media is kind of baseline now. I mean, everybody has access to similar media. Everybody can connect to exchanges and buy media from MoPub, Google, or Facebook. A lot of innovation we are doing is on the creative front, in analytics front. The creative is something where there are opportunities to leverage the mobile native ads in the right way. Mobile interstitial provide really a unique surface to really showcase your product, showcase your brand. So we are doing a lot of work around how we can leverage the mobile characteristics in terms of swipe gestures or interstitial ads and use that surface effectively to showcase your brand and product and get a higher engagement on the mobile retargeting campaigns. On the data front, as we talked about, we really need to go deep into analytics. You need to look at your campaign performance by different segments. You need to look at the campaign performance by different creatives. So we are building the tools which makes it easier for our marketers, our agency partners to really slice and dice the campaign performance by different metrics. We believe CPA, ROS, CPC, CPM, these kind of metrics are baseline now. Everybody can provide those metrics, but how do we provide more insights into your user, which can then guide your media planning strategy, can guide your bidding strategy, and can guide your marketing strategy on the retargeting. So a lot of innovation happening more on the creative side, on analytics side. Media as a baseline. Everybody has access to the same media, in my opinion. So that's it for us. Hope that the session was helpful. A lot of focus on analytics, and happy to take any questions if there are. So.
Thanks, guys.
It's always hard to compete with lunch. Oh, clapping. That's what happens,
Everyone's
Turn
really
the mic
hungry.
off. Right. So super quick question, maybe just yes, no's for you, which is, do you develop new LTV models for retargeted users?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you develop new LTV models for retargeted users?
I would say over time, yes. However, at the beginning, it's very hard to determine, especially if you're just starting with segmentation. But I believe that with each segment has their own specific ROI. Like it's thinking about looking at clusters. With that particular cluster, they should have unique events or attributes or personas based off of it. And so with that behavior also comes a different behavior in app. So whether that be generating more revenue, less revenue, I think that it's definitely contingent on whatever segment you're working with.
Perfect. And last but not least here, how often do you scrub out old device IDs?
They do not for us.
Yeah, so scrubbing the device ID, we do dynamic segmentation. Once the postbacks are set, we get the user list in real time. And based on the different rules, we define the segments. So scrubbing happens automatically. There is no manual scrubbing we need to do to keep the device ID refreshed.
Great. Well, thank you, and a big round of applause, especially for the audience. Thank you for being here. We will regroup at